Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu. So, today's sutta is about the spike. Okay, so have you learned this before? Sūciloma Sutta. Sūciloma Sutta. Okay, it was a certain incident that happened when the Buddha was alive. Okay, and this comes in the Samyutta Nikaya Yakka Samyutta. So the Yakka is you can call that it's in the translation it says native spirit. It's a kind of a spirit. Okay, so you can also say it as a demon. Demon. Thank you. So demon. Okay, so let's see what was happened there. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Gaya, on the cut stone ledge in the haunt of Spiky, the native spirit. So in the Gaya, Bodh Gaya, so in India, so there was a certain place that is haunted by this Spiky, the native spirit. So usually it's said to be the places are being haunted by these spirits. So, and they usually brings fear to the other beings, and that's how they sometimes they influence these lives of the humans by being bringing fear and like terrifying sounds, sometimes creepy sounds and creepy pictures. So that's how they dwell. Yes. And there was another spirit, and his name was Shaggy. It's because that they got kind of like body hair that's with their body like hanging out from the body, but it's so long like hair all over their physical form. And these two, Shaggy and Spiky, was going along to somewhere, but they were passing by not far from the Buddha. Though we can see them, so who knows, maybe they are passing also close by us. But it's not easy to see them. Okay? So Shaggy said to Spiky, "Hey, that's an ascetic." One person said to the other, "There is an ascetic, a recluse." So the other one said, "No, that's not ascetic, he's a faker." "I'll soon find out whether he's an ascetic or a faker." So one person said, "That's a recluse, and that's a monk, or like a Bhante." And the other one said, "No, he's not a real recluse." I don't know how they concluded that by this looking at them. So looking at the Buddha. So the other one said, "I'll soon find out whether he's an ascetic or a faker." Then Spiky went up to the Buddha and leaned up against his body. So this Spiky is said to be having body hair like all over the body, like needles. So it hurts others if they lean. So that much of like hurting, that feeling. So now he went close by to the Buddha and get so close to the Buddha. And then he leaned up against his body, but the Buddha pulled away. So when he was getting closer, the Buddha turned his body, not to being hurt with that, with that touch. Then Spiky said to the Buddha, so the Spiky thought, okay, now he turned his body, which means he's frightened because of me. So he has fear. So we know that Buddha doesn't have fear, greediness, anger, or any sort of delusion or confusion. So Buddha doesn't have this with his mind. But that Spiky doesn't know about this, the nature of the Buddha. So he thought, because the Buddha turned his body, it's for sure the Buddha afraid of me. See, that's how they influence the other beings. Have you seen haunted places? It's said to be that there are some places which is haunted. Kind of dark sometimes. Those places kind of dark. It's not brightens the place. And sometimes people go there to live, but they can't live there. There are some houses, which is said to be haunted. So people can spend their time there because they experience these fearful things, see? So that's how it influences humans, through that fear. Fear is because of the confusion that we can't see the true nature of the things. So when we see as the things as they really are, will not bring fear. So it is said to be even somebody hurt the Buddha with a dart to Buddha's heart, he will not seek for survival on the attachments. So which means usually we seek survival with the attachments, which means we are already attached to our senses. So we seek survival. But it doesn't matter for the Buddhas. It is said to be even that happens to the Buddha, or even the earthquakes or split into pieces, the Buddhas would not find any refuge or any survival, any escape from the attachments, from the defilements. That's the nature of the Buddha. So now that Spike is said to the Buddha because the Buddha pulled away. So he thought, okay, now he's frightened of me. Because the first of the sutta is said that one guy said that's an ascetic. The other one said, no, it's not ascetic. So both of them want to check it, whether it's an ascetic or not, because it is said to be ascetics does not frighten. Then the Spiker said to the Buddha, are you afraid, ascetic? Are you afraid of me? So the Buddha said, no, sir, I'm not afraid, but your touch is nasty. Because of that needle-like hair of his body. So he was so ashamed of this because that Buddha said, your touch is nasty. When that's said by the Buddha, so this Spiky and Shaggy was so like shamed, so like a disrespect for him. And he said, so the second time, if somebody pass these fearful things, so then they will use the other weapon, like a tool, to make the humans or the other people, other beings, to be grass to them, like to take them under their control. So the first one is the fear, and then it's not. Let's see. I'll ask you a question, Nasiki. So they will ask you questions. If you are not fear, so they will come to you and then they will ask questions. It's not the questions like, well, the questions, let's see. Okay, he says, if you don't answer me, I'll drive you insane. If you don't answer me to these questions, I'll drive you insane. So this is another thing that these spirits can possible to do. They will make beings insane. Or explode your heart. And they can also is it okay to say explode your heart? So they can explode your heart. Let's take this term. I can retain another term for this. So I'll drive you insane or explode your heart, or grab you by the feet and throw you to the far shore of the Ganges. See, now he's saying harsh words to the Buddha. First say, I'll drive you insane. So these are possible for them to do. Sometimes they can explode your heart. So this could be another hidden part of our human lives. Sometimes there are humans experience insane. Sometimes there are humans who have these strokes, and sometimes they fall into misery, fearful accidents sometimes. So this might be, right? This might be kind of influence from them. Because there's a vast majority of our hidden world, there are different types of spirits, right? That is not visible for the naked eye. But when they bring their mind under kind of concentration, so it opens up them to these other planes existence. So yes. Yes, yes. That's what it said. That's how it said, the spirit. So yes, yaka. And ghost and hungry ghosts are not much capable of doing these things, because they don't have much power with them, because they all had this when they were in human world. So they had this much of craving towards their belongings, and that brought them to this ghost worlds. And then that all they have is hunger and thirst. It's said to be that they are suffering from hunger and thirst, because they never done any kind of offerings, so they can't have they suffer from that hunger, right? And it is said to be in a certain sutta, that a certain story, that Sariputta Bhante's mother, before 3 or 4 years, 4 lives ago, so Sariputta Bhante's mother is now be born in the ghost world, and she came to in front of the Sariputta Bhante, because the Bhante can see them. So he said, I'm in the ghost world. So once I was your mother, so now I'm suffering. So the Bhante asked, so why are you? So what kind of sufferings? So she said that I have a long gone thirst and hunger. For 50 years, I can remember something that I ate. For 50 years. So she says, I go for somewhere to drink water. So she see a very big lake. So when she go there, so she sees this water, but when she comes closer to that place, so the water will disappear. So when she go, because of the uh, like strong sunlight, so she goes to under a shade for a tree, but that sun comes under the tree. Wherever she goes. Did you get that? Wherever she goes, so it follows her these painful feelings. So what they eat as ghost is like blood sometimes, and waste things from humans' bodies sometimes, and pus, blood, and sweat. So these are their food. So the Bhante helped her by offering some food for the Sangha and passing that merit with her. And then she gained these all the like food and kind of a comfort, but it cannot remove her from that world, ghost world, because that's one of her karma that she done. So will brings kind of comfort, but it will not bring an escape from that place. So yes, those are the ghosts, and there are yakas. Yakas have a little bit of much merits, not to be born in the ghost world, but to be born in this kind of spirit world. And there are titans, titans. They are much more stronger, powerful. Yeah, they have kind of stronger power. And there are some other species in these beings. And these two yakas was once they were monks. These two yakas were monks in his previous life. Because that's why let's say further the sutta. So Buddha said, so he said, those two yakas said, if you don't answer me, I'll drive you insane or explode your heart, grab you by your feet, and throw you from over the Ganges. So Buddha said, I don't see anyone in this world with its gods, Maras, and Brahmas, this population with its ascetics and Brahmins, its gods, humans, who could do that to me. So Buddha said, I don't see anybody in this world who can make my mind insane and who can explode my heart or grab me by the feet and throw away from the Ganges. Is this true? Yes, it's true. Buddha said there are gods and there are the Maras and Brahmas. So these are the beings that we can see. We can't see them. But Buddha says this. Not only the humans can do this to me, but even the gods, Maras, and Brahmins. This population with ascetics and Brahmins. Brahmins are the humans and ascetics are the recluses. So nobody can harm to Buddha's mind. But Buddha said, but anyway, ask you what you wish. So you said that you had a question, so you can ask the question. So the Buddha know that they are going to about to ask questions. So they ask, okay, let's see what the yakas, the demons, what kind of questions that they have. Like, why are these crises? Why this gas? The price of the gas is bringing this much high. Why is this? It's not kind of that question, like the questions that we have. Let's see that what they had. Where do greed and hate come from? From where spring discontent, desire, and terror? Where do the mind's thoughts originate, like a crow let loose by boys? So those questions were. So I remember a certain person asked from one of these questions. Where do the mind's thoughts originate? Have you ever had these questions? Yes, right? So time to time we have this, some like when we spend our life, sometimes we have kind of questions like, where these mind's thoughts originate? Because there are lots of thoughts that are coming to your mind like a fountain of water. So it pops up again and again. Many of those thoughts are not useful, like not always we are using all the thoughts, but there are, ongoing bunch of strands of thoughts. Where do greed and hate come from? So the hate and greed are also along with the thoughts. And where they spring discontent, which means that time to time we have this discontent, unsatisfaction. Sometimes we suffer from craving, and sometimes desire, and sometimes terror. Where do the mind's thoughts originate? Like a crow let loose by boys. So those days there was a play among the children that they catch crows and put a string on one's crow's leg and let them to fly by holding the other end of the string by their hands. And these now the crows are flying, but they can go much far as more as that the distance of the rope, the string, and then they fall down. But they're holding this end because they are holding the end. So he says, the mind's thoughts are like just like this, like the boys are playing with the crows. So the thoughts are like taking our mind to the past, to the future, and wander here and to different destinations. And but it cannot go much far, so it falls down, which means, yeah, let's go on to a little bit further. You'll find the answers. So the Buddha said, greed and hate come from here. From here spring discontent, desire, and terror. So the Buddha said, it's come from here, not somewhere else, not kind of another place or another person or another from the material world. But Buddha said, it's come from here. Greed, hate, discontent, desire, terror. So the Buddha direct these all of these thoughts, direct it to one's individual existence, which means the individual existence is another term for us. So we are with us, we have existence. So we are trapped to the samsara. So we are not escaped from the samsara. So we have existence here. Let's say we will die in like after 1 hour. So then we'll go and born in a place that the way that we conducted dealt with these thoughts, with karma. So we'll go and be born there, which means now there is ongoing existence that is programming here. So it's under that the dependent origination. So which means there is the core of our life that is dependently arising, which means the suffering is dependent with us, which means our consciousness is under kind of existence. Greed and hate come from here, because now we need to find where is the trouble, where is the what we should awaken to, what we should remove. So where should we find that? So Buddha said it's here, not somewhere else. So here's spring discontent, desire and terror. Here's where the mind's thoughts originate. So he said the mind thoughts are also originate from here with individual being, with our life, which means when you call another term for your life, okay, now let's phrase like this. So Buddha said the suffering is here because of the ignorance. So beings are enveloped and enshrouded with the ignorance. So what is ignorance? Yeah, yes, not understanding the suffering, not abandoning the cause for the suffering, not realizing the end of the suffering, and not practicing the path leading to the end of the suffering. So that's the ignorance, which means we don't have clear understanding of the Four Noble Truths. That's the ignorance. So everything we are doing, like when we speak, when we do actions from body, when we think, they all are enshrouded and immersed and absorbed into the ignorance. That's why after doing something, so it brings us sometimes worry. Sometimes it brings us frustration. Oh, I had not to tell like that, so I had to say like this. So these are another versions of the, I mean, we have ongoing suffering in our life when we experience and when we spend our life is because of the ignorance. So Buddha says, greed, hate come from here. From here spring discontent, desire and terror. Here's where the mind's thoughts originate, like a crow let loose by boys. Now he says, born of affection, originating in oneself. So these are, so we learned now these things are originating oneself. Because the reason is why Buddha is directing all the things to us is because to seek for the escape from that suffering within us. Sometimes we seek for end the suffering from outside. Did you get that? So when we get anger, so we usually tend to search for a solution from outside. So when we get the craving, so we tend to seek for satisfaction from outside. By being with something, like we searching for something. You know, in the Buddhist time, there was a person who went to a deity who wanted to go to the end of the world, searching for the end of the cosmos. So it's said to be that it went to the all around the universe from planes to planes, and you know, like he went so far, until that his age ends. So he went so far, but he couldn't find the end of the world. So the Buddha said, no, the end of the world is not there. End of the world is here. So the Buddha said, world is here. Buddha said, cause for the world is here. End of the world is here. And where leading to the end of the world is here. He said, the world is not outside. World is here. That is your eye, is your world. Ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. And that makes sense. Without this eye, we can't talk about a picture world, but we interact without, like, with this world. I mean, like the planet. So we see the pictures, we hear these things, smells, taste, and touch, and these are the outside world. But Buddha said, exactly, if you want to tell a world that should be said to this our individual existence, which means we have a suffering, we have cause for the suffering, we have end of the suffering, we have way leading to the end of the suffering. Now the Buddha says, originating in oneself. Now understand these all the things are from arising from you, from inside. So did you get that mind's thoughts originated from oneself? Does this make sense? A mind's thoughts originate from oneself. Yes, because you know papancha, so papancha, yeah, papancha's English translation itself make much thoughts. You know, it is said. Just see whether you can make sense about this term. Conceptual proliferations. Conceptual proliferations. Yes, proliferations. So this is another term that you say to much of thrones of lots of thoughts, which brings greed, which brings hate, which brings delusion, which brings fear. After we experience something, so we go back to our home. Sometimes, let's see, we see something in the city. So we see from our eyes. So when we go back to our home, it comes back to your mind and it works with much of thousands of thoughts and trapped. Conceptual proliferations. So, but for the enlightened beings who awaken themselves for the Four Noble Truths, doesn't have any sort of these strongs of thoughts. They don't have these thoughts. Born of affection. So affection is another term to the craving. So Buddha said, all of these things, whether it is lust, greed, hate, delusion, fear, ignorance, discontent, desire, and any kind of these kinds of thoughts are brought to you by affection, brought to you by craving. Originating in oneself like the shoots from a banyan's trunk. So have you seen the banyan's trunk? So banyan trees, a very gigantic, very big tree. And there are creepers that are hanging to the down and shoots, it said shoots. So, and they touch with this, the soil. The many kinds of attachment to the sensual pleasures. So many kinds of attachment to the sensual pleasures. Beautiful pictures, sounds, smells, tastes, and tangibles. Are like camel's foot, creeper creeping through the woods. So it's said to be there is a kind of like a creeper that goes all around the trees, and because of the weight, so these trees fall down because of the weight of the creeper. So little by little, these things grow, and then they will fall. So Buddha said, those who understand where they come from, get rid of them. So when you understand these things are come from this craving, this affection, so they can get rid of them. When they abandon that craving, so they can get rid of these, all of the other greediness, hate, discontent, desire, and terror. So when we have a kind of a craving for a certain thing, so it brings this kind of greediness, anger, and fear. Let's say, so the craving is bipolar, you know, craving is bipolar. So when we have craving for something, it has two versions. So we wish to certain thing to kind of a wanting. So we have kind of a wanting for a certain thing. And when we don't receive the way that we wished with that wanting, with that desire, so we repel and we resist with that. Did you get that? So let's say that we are going to a restaurant. So we ordered our favorite food. So we'll take the food. now we have this wish, that wanting. So we have that this food will be the way that I tasted last time. You know, like I need this food to be this with this taste. So that's my wanting, desire for that food. And let's say that now we are consuming this, now we are eating this, but it's not so. Let's say the food is not the way that we wished. Now we have the repellent, like repel nature of the mind, which means the resistance to the food. Why is this used to be like this? I mean, this had this kind of a more taste, but now I don't experience this. Why? So now we trapped with two bipolar version of the craving. Now we trapped with that food, and we are thinking else we might be much more greedy with that, or we might be resist with that. I don't go to that restaurant anymore. I'll find some another place to go. So I should try another one. So see, we in our life, we try to solve the problems from outside, which means that food itself will not brings you satisfaction. And it will also brings you fear. It will also brings you fear. Buddha said, the fear brings, desire brings fear. Tanhaya jayati soko, which means desire brings suffering. Tanhaya jayati soko. Tanhaya jayati bhaya, which means desire brings you fear. Tanha vipamutasa, if somebody doesn't have desire, nati soko kuto bhayam, they don't have fear, they don't have suffering, right? So Buddha said, so this is how usually our lives, sometimes with the objects we experience, whether it is like, let's say, a person might, so we wish that person should smile at us in the early morning, sometimes when we are going to our workplace or somewhere else at our home. So we wish so this person to be happy with us and should smile at us. So there's a kind of a wanting, you know. So we want that. So we have that in our mindset. So, but maybe he's himself have some hard times with his life. So he would not smile at us. So we start to think, so I wanted him to be okay, but now he's not. So which means he might be angry with me, or something happened with me. So we start to latch into these kind of thoughts, and brings much unsettled mind, like the boys let loose the crows. Yes.
So the idea of craving or desire creating fear. I don't quite understand how it can create fear. I mean, fear of outside, right?
Yeah,
and then if I desire, what does it feel? Why should I be afraid?
Because the desire drives to attachment. So now you have fear of loss.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So fear of not getting it.
Yeah. So desire, I think we have learned before, the desire have two versions. We have desire for the good things, and we have desire for the bad things. So in this respect, I'm talking about the craving, the desire for greediness brings greediness, so much attachments. So, but you know, we can train ourselves not to be desireful or greedy or craving, but to be at that present moment and to feel much satisfaction what we are experiencing. The feeling is okay. Like we can feel happiness, we can feel that joy and happiness in the present moment, but because of the craving, that as soon as we felt, it generates craving. And that craving generates attachment. Attachment generates existence. Existence generates birth. Birth generates suffering. So we trap into samsara as soon as we have the craving. And the reason is why our mind goes to the past and to the future, and to the reason is why our mind wanders to the other thoughts, is because of the craving. But if we were at the present moment, it will not take this far. You're well satisfied. That's why in Dharma, you can say that if you want to have a happier, more satisfied life, you need to be at the present moment.
I was thinking about this like, let's see, order a pizza, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't come. It doesn't come with time,
Yeah.
right? You get angry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm expecting something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't fulfill my desire. So
Yeah.
then my natural reaction is anger, right? It's fear.
Yeah.
Right. That I do.
But you can train yourself not to entangle to these mindly works. You know?
Pizza.
Yeah.
No, it's yeah.
But fear, afraid is usually maybe
Well,
afraid that you don't get your pizza.
But I think
Fear is the primary, from a psychology standpoint, fear is the primary emotion to aim. Yeah. There was your first psychiatrist in history, everything.
It's right.
how is anger related to fear? Well, I'm angry because I didn't get the pizza.
Because you're afraid something's missing.
Right.
Fear is a primary emotion.
Yeah, and this is my attachment to my expectation. Well, why did it come? Or did I do something wrong? Is it, did they not like me?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
did my credit card not go through or something? It's all these things that are.
Yeah. Because of that, whatever the solution we burst into after this experience of this anger, so will brings much more anger and like troubles, because we are going to solve the problem without the mindfulness. So that way, so it will latch into different other thoughts. But the first place, I think the first solution to any of your trouble is to be first seek for mindfulness. First try to be mindful and then try to attend to your troubles. So that's why Buddha said you should always seek for your mindfulness, any place, anywhere, any situation, any life circumstances, you should seek for the mindfulness, because it will solve half of your problem and then you can solve it to the other things later.
I'm learning fear actually. So if you are experiencing fear, what's the best thing to do? You're saying just to be present, but fear is suffering. So
Yeah,
to understand fear, you
Yeah.
have to ask yourself questions so that you can absolve the fear.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Or do you just stay present?
Well, no, you can say that in Satipatthana Sutta, he says that whatever feelings that is going through you, so try to be mindful. First thing is like just the way that you try to be mindful with your breathing. So you direct your attention to that very exact mental state. Now I have a fear. Now I have a fear. Now I have a fear. So you are trying to be more clear with your feeling. And it's like, let's say you have a box of apples. Okay. Now you want to single out a ripen, like let's say a ripen one. So you need to single out that. So you shed all the other things. You don't pay attention to the other apples. So as soon as you see the ripened one, so you will grab it. Does that make sense? Let's say there are like danger of a certain person among the crowd. So let's say he got some kind of a weapon. So when you, so somebody bring you the news that in the crowd, there's a person who might be dangerous. So the first thing for you is now you need to see who is having this. So you need to observe that person, and then you single out and you capture that person with your attention. And then you don't mean to worry, because you are always being mindful the way that he acts, even that he turned his head here and there. So you are with close attention with him. So the first approach is to be mindful with your fear. Now I have fear, and then nothing permanent in the world, and this fear. Now you are being focused to fear, but it will rise and falls. You might want nothing to do with it. It will change.
But not wanting to do with it is like the bipolarity, running from. Is it not?
No,
'Cause
you
what
just
you-
pay you just pay attention to that feeling, and this is how is the anger. This is the anger. So now we want to remove that anger. So now let's see. Now you still have now this anger appears again and again. Now you want to remove that, not anger, the fear. Now that fear, you point yourself and you try to be mindful with that, but it comes back to you. Now you can search for the insight meditation. You can apply insight or wisdom to your fear by seeing that fear as impermanent. You can see this fear, so you can start to recollect. Now you identified and recognize that fear. Now you are recollecting this is impermanent. If something is impermanent, it is unsatisfaction. Whether you like it or not, your mind is attached to the fear.
Right.
So because that it is impermanent, even that you need to use this fear, it's unsatisfaction. You can't use that fear as you wish. So it's unsatisfaction being, which means if it is not self, if something is unsatisfaction, it's not self. And if something is impermanent, not unsatisfaction, not self, it should be seen as with the proper wisdom. This is not me. This is not mine. It is not myself. Now you have the fear. You might have the fear, but now you with clear understanding from a side, and from the other side you have mindfulness. So with these two approaches, you are dealing with this so-called fearful thought. So for whatever, you can apply this, not only for fear, but anger, lust. So you can try to work with these two tools, Buddha said. Whenever you are going to the, Buddha said, whenever you are going to the people, you can say that to city, or sometime crowd of people of the workplace, try to take your shield and your sword. Why? Is because, so the shield is your mindfulness. You protect you against the suffering. And you also have the sword. The sword is your insight, which means the insight meditation, which means the impermanence. So you try to cover you. If that is not working, so you use the sword. So when you go to your world, your daily life, troubles are unexpected, We can't exactly say this will happen, that will happen, and then I will face to this. No, you can't have that preparation for such a situations, but better take your shield and sword, so then you can work on your troubles. And the Buddha said, get rid of them, listen up, spirit. They cross this flood so hard to cross, not crossed before, so as to not to be reborn. Does not make sense. Again, from the beginning, born of affection, originating in oneself, like the shoots from a banyan trunk, the many kinds of attachment to the sensual pleasures are like camel's foot creeper creeping through the woods. Those who understand where they come from, get rid of them. Listen up, spirits. They cross this flood so hard to cross. See, it's not only the craving drives us to suffering here and now, but it's also brings us suffering in the other lives. So it brings us so many suffering destinies and existence. Sometimes animal worlds, sometimes ghost worlds, sometimes titan worlds, and these yakas, they all suffer. The yakas' food is, it's said to be that of like dead bodies. So they suck this fluids from the dead bodies. So they cross this flood so hard to cross, which means Buddha himself say, even that he escaped from this cross flood of suffering. So he see this clearly that it's hard to cross. This is very hard to cross. Not crossed before, which means we have been yakas before. We have been ghosts before. We have been animals before. We have been titans before. We have been humans before, gods before, maras before. But we never attain the Nibbana. So now it's your best time, your perfect time to escape from this. And for the first thing, I think what you should do is to have a pleasant mind, confidence on the Buddha. That's the nature of this dream enterer. So all of a sudden we can solve this. Like when we start to meditate today, so I'll overcome the craving tomorrow. No, it doesn't work. But the first option for you is to have a pleasant mind on the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. And that will bring you extreme enterer, and you can be extreme enterer. Else, if you die all of a sudden, if you die in the middle of the practice, you will be born in the heavenly world, where that you can continue these practices, like Tavatinsa world. So in the Tavatinsa world, it is said to be there are lots of Kalyana Mittas, good friends, Dhamma friends. So then you can listen to these things. And if that is not so, it will bring, so there's no options for this. Okay, my friends. So now this is the end of our session. Sadhu, sadhu. May all of us be able to realize the Four Noble Truths and get rid of every suffering in our lives.